Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor v World. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here for another podcast on this Australian Survivor World Tour, going through every player that will be playing on this upcoming season starting on August 17th. And we are talking today about a name at this point pretty much synonymous with Australian Survivor. If anyone doesn't know him, we'll introduce you to him. But I do kind of feel like if anyone even knows anything remotely about Australian Survivor, I kind of feel like in the word cloud, George might be a pretty big word there that people know about it. And to talk about this big, bombastic, somewhat villainous character, I thought for some reason that I would bring in this guest. It is a great Omar. Omar, thank you for being here.
Aye, Shannon. I heard that Andy Rueda stole my shtick and did it better.
Yeah.
So I had to do a lot of practicing to talk about King George. And I'm
Yeah.
ready, Mr. Prime Minister.
Incredibly sad state of affairs to be fighting over the fake bad Australian accent shtick. Like, sad anyway, but sad to be wrestling over that one. Like, you should be like, you have it.
Yeah, well, I feel like George is the Prime Minister of Australian Survivor. So I'm excited to be talking about him today because he really is. He reinvigorated a series that was kind of on the low after All Stars, despite such a dominant win by David. Like, the fandom was like, that was a travesty to watch. But I enjoyed All Stars, to be fair. But okay. Well, David played a very good game, but
Yes.
it was a little Survivor 48 coded, if you know what I mean. So I think that is very interesting to see George kind of, especially with the gap because of COVID, come back and like really invigorate the series in a way that felt very new and fresh, I found.
Yeah, I mean, the low that the series had experienced was it had one bad season. It had All Stars, which
yes,
people
but you know
liked.
how long these seasons are, Shannon.
Yeah, yeah. It felt like All Stars felt like an eternity. I do understand. And then there was like a COVID gap.
Right.
I think like the casuals loved David and like All Stars, but certainly I was like, what now? No. And then there was the gap because All Stars was in February, and then they were like, well, maybe we'll do 2 a year. Because they were doing them in July, and then All Stars was in February, and then instead COVID happened, so there was no season in July, and there was no season the next February, and then this was like the next July. Right. So it was a gap, but it was still like there's been one every year. But yeah, George came back, and like if that's the reboot, like if those are the two eras of Australian Survivor, which kind of tracks probably, then you know George is the face of the second era, and arguably the face of the franchise. I think you argue about that, George or David. But yeah, like I do think like King George in many ways put Australian Survivor on the map, the global map.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think that George is like Russell, don't get me wrong. And I was not a Russell fan, but it does feel like it was like, we got to get George back on TV in a similar way that it was with Russell. You know, he's played several times in a very short period of time, which actually does have me a little bit worried about his chances, independent of who this group of Australian 7 people are, because, you know, you saw Russell, you saw Sari, you know, both dominant game players playing 3 times in a short period of time. The third time didn't go so well because the reputation was just too great to overcome. So that is my biggest worry for George.
Yeah, I mean, look, Shawnee's played 4 times, but 3 times in short succession, and so impressive that she's made the merge every time. Like, to be fair, she has gone 4, 7, 9. Like, it keeps decreasing, but no one's mad at like 9th place on the 3rd time on what I thought was her most impressive showing. I feel like.
But Shawnee was like, she was a very, don't get me wrong, I feel like she's a very good player, but I don't feel like she's extremely loyal to the people that she's with, and she's not threatening in the way that a George is, a Russell is, a Sari is. So I feel like, to me, it would track that she's probably going to do well on pretty much any season that she goes on. But I feel like George, Sari, Russell, they can have a very high variance in terms of how it goes.
Yeah, true. And George, especially like the Russell type archetype, like George is bombastic. George is a huge name. Like George is pulling all the energy and attention. It's not like Shawnee isn't a major character, but I think certainly at least coming out of her first season and maybe even her second. Like maybe people don't see that as much. Maybe it's more of like a niche Twitter thing. I think the aura of that probably isn't out there as much in the island, whereas like George is like wearing idols and George is, you know, talking about Macedonian Jesus and being George like, and you can't get your way around that. So yeah, like it's gonna go one of two ways for George, I feel like, and we've only seen it go one way. Which very well. He's come second, he's come fourth, and like when I look at this cast, I think George is screwed. Like first thing when I saw the Australia tribe, I was like, oh, George is so completely screwed. That was my first thing I said. However, the one thing that gets me through as George's friend and a fan of George is that we thought that with Heroes Villains, I think, right? Like he came back from being the biggest name from Brains v Brawn, and it was like, how is he going to survive it all through Heroes Villains? And it was more impressive to me. We'll talk about his games, but more impressive the game he played in Heroes Villains, where I mean there are in-game issues with George, and he's going to have like trouble around like a final challenge, and he's always trying to like work around that. But he controlled the whole game. He made it through a tricky pre-merge. He pulled off what are probably some of the best moves of all time, which we'll talk about. And no one saw it going that way. So I guess my two saving graces for how difficult this looks for George for me is he's surprised me before. Like, don't underestimate him. And also idols. Like those two things, right?
Right. I agree with you. However, I think if you had told me he was going to be on a 14-person cast, 7 Australians, how would he do without knowing what the makeup would be? I think that if you had given me some of these names, I would have been like, okay, that's problematic. But the thing is, in this group of 7 in particular, I do think there is a little bit of a path forward. There's also only 14 people. So you assume they're probably going to merge pretty quickly, I would imagine. So I feel like he is not going to have as deep of a run as he did the first 2 times, but I still could see him making the merge, to be honest, because if you look at this group, you have Luke, you have David, you have Janine. That's, I feel like, going to be a power trio. And Sarah kind of falls in with that a little bit. However, Sarah is a little bit peripheral to that. And we saw her play AU2. She's not going to stick to the bottom of an alliance. Now, for her being number 4 in that group, and to be fair, I don't really know what all these relationships are outside of the game, but to be number 4 in a 7-person 14-player game, I don't think is that bad. And I don't think she should be that threatened by it. But we saw she doesn't necessarily like to play at the bottom. So is she going to be looking to like scoop up people like Kirby? I could see Sarah working very well with George as an ally. The biggest question mark is Shawnee and how that rivalry, if you want to call it that, plays out. And I would say in a normal sense, I don't see Shawnee working with George because he burned her so bad. But who else does she have in this group? Yes. You know, was she working? I can't remember her. She didn't play with Luke, correct? I don't think.
No, she's only played with David. Yeah.
Right. And that was oppositional.
Yes.
And so I don't know. I could see her being like, okay, maybe the devil, if there's a mutual interest there, perhaps a short-term thing. And then maybe she gets the better of him this time. Like, that's kind of what I would guess is a possibility, but also he knows he's on the outs. He's going to be looking for the idler advantage. And so I wouldn't count him out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's optimistic. I do think trinkets are a big part of this. They're a big part of George's game. I mean, we usually start talking about the players, but I guess we can dive in a little bit looking at this makeup of the tribe team, because it is true that every podcast we come on and say like George is screwed. So let's talk about it. Here are my concerns, and they are many. David, I think, is so well connected. So David, Janine, Luke, Sarah, those are the relationships. And then Luke is tight with Kirby from before Kirby even played. And Kirby will know and like George. Like, we covered Kirby season together on Talking Tribal, and I think that they would have a good relationship, but I don't know if that's better than like the friendship she has with Luke. So I think that David has so much power in this group, and I think David will 100% want to target George. David is someone who wanted to vote out Harry because, so that he could have more days than Harry. Like, David is thinking about winning the confessional war with George. So I can imagine him immediately trying to do that. So David's my primary concern. Then I look at it and I do think that George could have good relationships with these people, but I think that David's in there first having these relationships. Like, I do think he could work really well with Sarah, but if it's David v. George, I feel like at least Sarah kind of knows David. I think he could work really well with
Does she
Luke,
know
but in
David?
this situation, yeah, she knows David. I think the story is maybe that she made David apply.
Oh shit! Well, I didn't know all of these things. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
like they
this
were
is
both
not looking
models.
so good for
Yeah,
George.
they were both models in life, on
I
being
still
models.
think though that Sarah is not gonna like being at the bottom of Luke, Janine, David,
Yeah.
and all of these other side relationships. Like I think, she's waited a long time to play this game again. This is not the Sarah podcast, but I think that I don't know if this is gonna sit well with her, is all I'm trying to say.
Well,
And if
yeah.
you're gonna do something, you need George in this set, and that's why I think Shawnee also might let bygones be bygones, because if it's not George, if he's protected by an idol with all these connections in this group, it's gonna be her. So maybe she needs to like work with that.
Well, yeah, I think Sarah and George would get on in a world where there aren't these like pre-existing relationships and these dynamics. Like I think they are kind of natural allies because I think Sarah has fun with that type of gameplay. Like we said in the Sarah podcast, the way she likes to play is it's Survivor and it's fun. And she had that with Luke, right? That kind of I think that she would have fun with George. They're both two of the biggest, probably the two biggest fans on the tribe. I think they could, but I don't know if that's bigger than the connection she has, but I think that they would naturally connect. I think that George would get on with Luke if there wasn't the David of it all there, in which case, obviously, Luke chooses David. Yeah, so I think even the relationships he could have are like blocked up for him. And then the Shawnee of it all. So yeah, we'll talk about George's game. The last time he saw Shawnee, well, he wasn't just blindsiding his closest ally, Shawnee, out of the game with an idol. He then was a part of, to be fair, following along with, but he did also vote her out of the jury. And I feel like that was in like I feel like they were not in a good space going into the season. Now beggars can't be choosers. Like I really think Shawnee really badly needs George and vice versa. So maybe the two great players obviously put that aside if they're like, was everyone else on this freaking cast in the same 2 seasons connected by Luke and Dave pretty much?
Yeah.
So maybe, but even that might not be enough. So I do think with trinkets and a couple of allies, you never know, right? It seemed impossible on the first days of Heroes v Villains. He was in the hospital with a possible broken neck, and he went on to come forth. Like I think that is the George. To be fair, in both seasons, we can talk about his seasons now and his big moments. He was never meant to make it out of the Brains tribe from the beginning. Like thinking about George starts on the Brains tribe.
Yeah.
And he's immediately on the outs. He puts himself on the outs by using an advantage that takes 6 people out of tribal council, 6 of the 12.
Yeah.
And then insulting all of those 6 people. Like, we should all align because you're old and you're weak. And it was a secret scene on 10 play.
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
So funny.
And they all didn't like that for some reason. And he was public enemy number 1. He found an idol, wore the idol that he now has tattooed on his chest. And he played that idol, but like, anyway, it was implicit immunity. So he got through that round anyway, but he also played that idol. So it should have been gone then. And then he should have been gone again, but Kara sacrificed herself in a split vote and played her idol for him like Macedonian Jesus, and then was resurrected through a twist. It was genuinely biblical. It was incredible.
Was one of the most, because it's like watching that play out, I remember exactly where I was. It was fresh off of filming of Survivor. First season I watched coming back from Survivor, and sitting there on my bed, which had no frame because I had just moved, and laying there eating my mild butter chicken and being like, how is he getting out of this? This does not feel like his story is over. None of this makes any sense. And when she so nonsensically cooked her own game and gave it to him, and I was like, but her story doesn't seem over. Truly one of the best moments of the show ever.
Yeah, I think that, so I thought George was gone every week. Like, George had been hyped up so hard pre-season that you would assume he was going to have a long run. However, George was such a massive character that even if he had been voted out of that like second tribal council where Mitch went, where he played the idol, or he used implicit immunity and then played the idol, it still would have justified how much he'd been hyped up pre-season. So I didn't feel like he even had like not plot armor, but like marketing armor, because even if you have like George for 3-4 episodes or whatever, and he's done all of that, like you would hype it. So every week, and I'd actually written a song to You'll Be Back about King George and the whole Hamilton of it all. And I was like, I'd written it and I kept having to edit it to where he got in the game. And I was like, I'm going to play it on the podcast when he goes home. I did not expect to play it on the finale. It was shocking to me. Every week I thought he was gone. Every single week on the podcast, I was like, next week is George's week. But the fact that Kara sacrificed herself for him. So to get through that Brains tribe, yeah, he uses the advantage at first. Then I think it's immunity. Then he uses implicit immunity. He uses immunity. Kara sacrifices herself for him. Goes on the split. Comes back in the resurrection twist. And then Haley like impossibly flips the tribe. That was miraculous. Like every single vote there is a miracle, and he did it, and it's happening multiple times before a swap. So to be fair, is him making it through the Australia tribe any more miraculous than that? Like nothing is. So
It's
maybe.
true. I mean, and even the second time he had quite a bit of heat coming at him pre-merge at certain times before he could lock in with the Spice Girls. But George the thing is, he's so hyper frenetic. He's always, it's a little bit Tony-like. Like if he's always moving faster than everybody else, can he make a lot of fumbles, but then recover them before people even have a chance to process the mistakes? And I think that in such a short game with 14 people only, that is the perfect setup for him to actually really run away with that type of a game style. And so and also we have to consider, I know we still have to go through all of his moves and stuff, but this tribe is much stronger than the international tribe. And they have the experience of Australian Survivor challenges. I don't see this tribe losing very easily. And so if George even has one immunity idol, and the margins are so thin that they know he's going to be. So in my opinion, George's best move is to pull a Game Changers Tony, but not quite, in terms of like play hard from the jump. They're expecting you to do it. So just go do it. Go find that immunity idol right away. You already know they're all going to be talking about you. That's going to make them need to split the votes. And those smaller margins is where he could potentially come out on top. And if he has an idol, then he's at least safe. And they may not even lose. So that's what I would do if I were him.
He has nothing to lose. Like he should be bluffing everything. The thing is that like they could split against him and Shawnee. I'm already like imagining these dynamics and they might not even pan out, but I spent a lot of time thinking about how screwed George is. But again, he can surprise me. But yeah, I mean, getting through that initial Brains tribe, like imagine a world in which George doesn't. Like imagine a world in which, well, if Kara doesn't sacrifice himself, he still comes back. But like if any of those things go differently, you know what I mean? Like then he's still resurrected. But then, and then do you know the crazy thing is like, then he still returns. Like then he still probably plays on Heroes v Villains, even if he never makes it out of Brains. That is how much of an impact George had from moment one on Brains Beach. And then, I mean, to talk about the rest of that season, like honestly, it would have been enough if that was it, and then the rest was really standard. The swap was standard. That was his most like kind of social, and he made a relationship with the Brawn, other than accidentally voting out Danny, which was Kara's fault. It was like a pretty standard stretch of the season. But the merge, there's so much going on in what he was doing in that. Like, again, like one of these moves would be like kind of all time for anyone. He's pioneering the mole vote twice by working with Haley, getting her to play her idol, like working with the Brains minority, getting her to play her idol correctly by being the mole. He's also, secondly, he was a mole twice. He was a mole twice in like 2 weeks, which is crazy, by playing the idol, a secret urn idol for Kara to idol Laura out of the game. He did so many plurality votes, these like macro plurality votes with the Brains, then with like Kara and Haley and Wei on like Gerald and Emma turning against these allies when he'd been a bit of a swing vote. It's just crazy to think about. And then he gets to an end game of like my favorite week in Survivor history, possibly. That the split at 5, he does a 2-2-1 in case Flick has an idol, which was beautiful. Beautiful plurality vote. And then he does the 2-1-1 at the final 4 to vote out his closest ally, Kara, because George always runs into the same issue of how am I going to get through a final immunity challenge, and he knew he needed Haley to take him through to at least have a shot of beating her. And while he didn't beat her and the jury were angry, and beating Haley is a tough task, he knew was his best shot to at least sit there with someone he could maybe beat. And that was the right read. Like, that is a laundry list of insanity on just his first game. Like,
and crazy. I would say the only George's thing is his style of gameplay. It's not perfect, the way that he spoke and treated Wei, for instance, she didn't love that, and she turned on him for that purpose. But a lot of his strategic decisions in terms of who goes when and how and why are often very, very sound. And so that's why I trust him. I back him in his reads. The only one I could maybe think of retroactively, And I think I was a little bit skeptical about his Shawnee blindside, even on Heroes versus Villains. Like I thought it might be a bit too early, but clearly not.
I
But
was into it.
I remember that. I remember we disagreed about that. But the only thing that I could have criticized him on, with the benefit of hindsight as well, but even at the time I was wondering, was did the Nina thing go one round too early? Because Nina at 4, they got to vote her out over him, and so
Do
he was
they?
missing. I think so, because she had all the heroes on the jury. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like if he wasn't sure if it was going to be a final 2 or final 3, then that was like having Nina there, and she had won one challenge, but it wasn't like a runaway. That person is always going to go kind of before him. And so that's the only time I was like, okay, maybe his strategic idea was maybe a bit off, but I also wasn't there for the full thing. So I'm sure he has 10 reasons why he did that. But in general, I feel like his strategic decisions, not necessarily how he comes across, is very, very sound. And so I can see him identifying the people that he needs to kind of work with on the season. I also see David and George as adversarial, but and to be fair, get along with, like, strategically, at least, with Simon, with Emmett, people like that. So maybe he's not going to get along with David.
He
But
will
if they
not.
needed each other, I think that they would work together. But David
No.
really does not need George in any way.
I can't imagine them ever working together. I imagine that David is like, if you think the two names in Australian Survivor, I think it's David and George, and I'm sure both of them hate that. I think that they hate that there's two names,
Yeah.
and I think they want to be the name. And it's like, if
Right.
this is gonna be the thing to decide it, I can imagine they would throw the win away to get one over on each other. That's just how I kind of read both of
Right.
those characters. I think we'll talk about the endgame of Heroes Villains. I think there was a lot of confusion around. They thought it was a final 2, and that's George always struggles with like how he will get through that final challenge. I think he thought maybe like if Matt and Jerry would give him like the best physical chance there. And look, if he's worrying about how to get through a final immunity challenge in this season, it's a blessing. So hopefully we get to that same conundrum. But yeah, I think the thing with George's game style in a more macro sense is when I wrote an article last year about like, accruing social capital to spend it strategically. And I used George as an example of someone who might have more limited social capital, who manages to stretch it strategically, which
Yeah.
George does through plurality votes of knowing where all the votes are going and being able to like spend the least amount to get things done. Obviously using trinkets as well. It's the reads, it's these big brain ideas.
It's like he has good investments too. Like he
Yeah.
knows, yeah, like that they really pay off, but you have to put it in the right spot. And he really can identify that pretty early.
Yeah, he's maybe the best at that
Mhm.
in the world.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think to talk about his limited social capital, I'm not meaning like he can't make friends, because that's not true at all. If anything,
Yeah.
he makes very close relationships. Kara was his loved one on Heroes versus Villains, which is still
Right.
an all-time moment. But I think the thing is he also makes enemies. Like
Right.
he's got like 3 tiers of relationships. Like he does have these incredibly close bonds
Mhm.
with your Karas, with Haley, who he's super close with in 2 seasons, until he's not with the Spice Girls. He is very close with them. He was super close with like Jerry and probably to a lesser extent Matt. Like he gets the Vigilantes together. Look at the way that he invested in like a Stevie until he has to sacrifice Stevie. All very like he gets these like the social capital on side in a way that's very, very strong, but like very targeted, very specific. It's
Mhm.
not a comprehensive social game because then he also
Right.
has enemies. Like he's known for that whole Brains tribe, like they hated him. The
Yeah.
Brawn tribe eventually also they hated him.
He also, like, yeah, like I
Simon,
think
the
he
heroes.
spends it a little, like his social capital. Sometimes he'll spend it on like fancy items rather than things he needs. And sometimes those, like, I mean, I can't relate to this, but um, do you really want a nice handbag? It doesn't do anything for you in life, but you feel a bit better. So maybe like digging the knife into Simon, it's a little fun, but that takes away from your social balance too. But that's
Yeah.
George. What are you gonna do?
Well, that's my concern is that he has these like he's as known for the bonds with like a Cara and a Haley as he is with these like long-term rivalries with the Simons of the world. And I'm concerned that that will define this game with someone like a David for him more than the bonds can.
Right.
And that is a concern. But yeah, then he has like the third tier, which is like complicated relationships, which is like a way. which is like he
Yeah,
gets
yeah,
in his own way socially.
unintended.
Yeah. And that's the like I very rarely disagree with George strategically. I think he sees things in ways that make so much sense.
Hmm.
And he knows how to recover from things. Like even Shawnee, like he got Liz back. Like he recovered so
Yeah,
well from that. The disagreements are socially obviously like don't put off way so much that she turns on you.
yeah,
Don't do that.
1,000%.
So like those that's the issue. Um but yeah, I mean we can talk about who we might connect with. Like on the Australia tribe, we've kind of spoken about that. On World, like I think he could get on with Lisa. I think she's like the exact type of
Oh yeah,
demographic he usually goes for. And Suri, I think George will have a real reverence for Suri. Like we
you think
talked
so?
about what?
You think so?
Yeah, I definitely do because I think George is a fan. George posted a
Right.
couple of days ago saying like, "Wow, I can't believe I'm on the poster with like these US legends." And there are not a lot of fans in the cast, and George is maybe like with Sarah on this tribe, and then like with Lisa, like overall, like George is like a real fan of these US legends, and I think especially Suri is someone he would absolutely love if he gets to Suri.
Right. I see him working with Lisa. I agree. I don't think he will work well with Parvati, which means I
Well,
don't
Parvati's
think
with Dave.
yes, but I don't think that Suri will work well with George.
Yeah,
Like I
that's
think
the
he may
issue.
want to. He is the
Yeah.
exact opposite of the type that Suri wants to work
Oh,
with.
I know. I disagree. I disagree. I think Sari would like him, but
You
it's
think
kind of like
so?
Kirby and Sarah. It's like I think that they're already in this David camp that's like pre-created. This like
Right.
David Parvati Luke thing.
Yeah.
I think Sari would love George the same way she got a kick out of like a Shane Powers.
Interesting, because I saw it as like, oh, like she didn't really want to work well with strategically with like Corey Wurtenberger. So would she really want to
Yeah,
go
that's
to
not
George,
George
who's a little bit
though.
unstable in terms of like, Sari likes people that she can influence and control. I feel like a lot,
Nah, I
and
think
George is
Sari
really,
would be
really not
entertained
that.
by him.
Yeah, she may be, but ultimately, I just don't see her like I don't see him being in her inner circle because at the end of the day, she knows that if it benefits him, if she did her homework on this, like he's not taking her to the end, and she has people like Parvati that are backing her up. She potentially could work with Tony. I think that there are other stable relationships she'll work with more, but I'll trust you on the fact that he would want to work with her. I think that Parvati is like a no. I think he could actually work well with Tony. Like that's the one that I
Mm,
see on that tribe that could be the best option because I feel like they're both going to be looking for someone to work with on that chaos level. And I don't think that anyone on the AU tribe, given the circumstances, will match his freak like Tony will.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think with Sari, I think the thing that Sari and George share is they're both like a real fan of like Survivor and the fun of Survivor. And I think that other than the relationships that could preclude Sari from working with George, I think that if Sari's gotten into Australian Survivor a bit and like done her research, she'd be like King George. Like I think she'd be having fun with the whole idea of George. Whether she can work with him is one thing, but I think it would be like a want for her. But I don't know that these
We
relationships
should
haven't
we
pan
should
out.
bet on it when we see. Okay, we'll bet a coffee or something fun on it.
Yeah, if he
Okay,
gets to the point where he can be with Sari,
I think
I
he
don't know.
will. I think he will.
Well, I don't know if I don't know if it'll work out strategically, but I don't think Sari would be against it. I think Sari will
I
think
see.
George is fun. I mean, if
Yes,
someone could help me meet Sari, I could ask her if she likes George, you know?
yes. I just do not think that Suri will let him anywhere near the end game. That's what I would say. Like, I
Yeah,
don't think
well,
she's opposed to working with him. I don't think she'll let him anywhere near there. It would be my thought.
I don't think
I see Suri and Kirby actually working together very well. Like I see their energies aligning super well if they get together.
which is funny because Kirby would not understand the gravity of the situation
Yeah, I
working
know she
Sari.
wouldn't appreciate it, but I think I see it.
I don't know that we're disagreeing enough to bet a coffee on it. Like, I think that Sari like we both think they could work together, but maybe not like super long term. Like I don't know. It's not stark enough to make a bet really on it. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I think Tony is interesting because in the wake of Tony, Australian Survivor began in the wake of Tony, and so many people are described to this day like Tony. We describe the Lukes, the Kirbys, the Georges, the whole Australia tribe is like the people we've compared to Tony. And will Tony will he like his little children that we've created, like his little Tony lights?
I think Tony will be
Or
desperate for an ally.
yeah, well, I just can't imagine. I think the world will implode
I think the
on
world
Tony
is going to
George.
go to every tribal council And
No,
I
I just
think,
mean I don't mean the world tribe. I mean the world we live
oh, the
in.
world
I think
we
it'll
live.
implode. Like I think the
If
Tony George
Tony and
alliance will be the
George,
end of humanity,
I
not
think
the world
it's
tribe.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's too
confusing.
unstable. It's like a chemical reaction where you can't bring
Yeah,
two elements together. But I think it would actually be electric and dynamic, and I see it being so off the wall that it would actually work. And I hope to see that
that
dynamic.
would be
But
amazing.
I think that world is going to get decimated, like the world tribe, not the world.
Right.
And I think that Tony is going to have a hard time with this group.
Yeah, I think, look, if Tony and George, the way I imagine it is like, I'm Tony, I'm George, like handshake, like full global explosion, no more humanity. But we would know if that had happened because it was filmed last year. So we might be okay. But
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
best possible way, like if that's the way we all have to go out, I hope it is on a George and Tony alliance. I just don't know if we as humanity can survive it. But
I'm
I
here
feel
for
like,
it.
I mean, for people who want all the control, and I think in similar archetypes, I don't think George likes playing with his archetype in ways that are
Mhm.
competitive to him. Like Shawnee's different.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And
But
anyway, he could
Haley,
figure
he
out.
likes playing with Haley.
Haley's different.
Why?
Different. Haley's not. Haley's a. It's a whole different demeanor. Like it's a whole different demographic. Like I think he sees Tony. If it's like Tony v George, the way we might compare them, I don't think. I think he wants to compete with those people and win. Not that again, beggars cannot be choosers, but I kind of
Yeah,
think he does not vibe with those people as much as he vibes with like he finds like a really different archetype, the
right.
Karas of the world. You know what I mean? And
Okay,
I
well,
think
let's
that
see.
yeah.
I'm very interested because I see him and Suri going head to head. I don't even
No,
see them really working together that well, and I see him and Tony having this.
no, because Sarie's different. So he's a different archetype, like a whole different thing. He's not as threatened by that. I really feel
Yeah,
like that's the case.
I can't wait to
Um,
watch and see. Maybe we'll hear from him and he'll let us know.
no, don't tell me. Don't no one tell me anything. So anyway, we've talked about his first game. We haven't even gotten into the second game.
Yeah.
Heroes versus villains. Like as we said, he almost died day one at the challenge that
Oh wait, sorry. Before that, how do you think he gets along with Kirby? I feel like
really well. Really
Yeah.
well. I think I'm trying to think about how he spoke about her on Talking Tribal. I think he was always really high on Kirby.
Hmm.
And I feel like Kirby knows who he is from having
Right.
watched Talking Tribal, and she knows so few of these people that she'll be like a friendly face.
After watching Luke on Traders, I don't see him, and with the David of it all, obviously probably not. But
Yeah,
I don't even see him independently wanting to work with George because he did not
I
like
could.
the schemy type on Traders.
No, I think that in a different world where David's not there, Luke and George could have had fun.
Okay.
Like they would have like it's that same sense of like fun and like getting up to mischief.
Cheekiness, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not this world. Not
No,
this Australia V
definitely
world
not.
because David's there. But
Yeah.
yeah, Kirby, I think Kirby could be a good natural ally for George. I just wonder if she'll fall into line with the Luke and David of it all.
Yeah. I will say though, going into heroes versus villains, like I looked at that tribe and I was like, I feel like George is so fucked because
Yes.
I was like, Jordy and Simon are going to go after him right away.
And they did.
And they did, but I was like, they're probably going to pull in like all of these little straggler newbies who are
And they did.
they're probably the only season some of these newbies have watched is the last one, and they wouldn't be that dumb to trust George after that. But and while it was a little dicey at first, he really and a lot of credit goes to Shawnee there too, because she did kind of
Yeah.
move mountains to win people over, but he found himself very quickly on the other side of it. And you had Simon and Jordy really having to bend the knee to him.
Yes. He came into the villains tribe that was going to lose like almost all of the immunity challenges, a lot of them. And not only was he screwed and the biggest name by far and like the biggest target, but I mean, Shawnee was also a big name. Those were like the two really big names. But like, not only was he screwed on the first day, not only did he almost break his neck, miss the first tribal council, and everyone was like, he was so lucky that he got out of tribal council. He lost Angeli, who he was connecting with.
Obsessed with her, by the way. Bring her back.
Yeah, sure. He lost Jackie, who he had a pre-existing relationship with because she was medevaced out with him. They were in the hospital together. It's messed
Rest
up.
in peace. Yep.
Well, she's not dead. Let's not put that into the lawsuit. But yeah, it was really upsetting what happened to Jackie actually. And then he lost two like real possible allies, and then came in and Shawnee's protection was key, and he earns that too. Like the Spice Girls are having a lot of fun. I think that's the best thing that George does. He does it with the Spice Girls. He does it at the merge with the Vigilantes. It's like we're gonna create a group, and you're gonna want to beat us. Like the Vigilantes were so fun. Like he brought people into a thing. And Shawnee is a big part of that with the Spice
Yeah.
Girls. But I think they did that really well
But
to
that
control through the
is
swap, to this pre-swap.
Yeah, but that is something that, we've talked a little bit about his social capital spends and stuff like that, and the negative aspects to his social game at times. And even early on in Heroes versus Villains, like, he was very combative towards Mimi for not wanting to like fuck over the heroes
Yeah.
for no, like, at the time I was watching and I was like, this is not my personal style, but I'm entertained by it. But like, I don't understand why this is a good move. But in hindsight, thinking back, is him being so openly antagonistic about certain things, does that make the people he's having fun with and acting positively towards more trusting of him, because they're like, he doesn't filter himself? So if he is openly antagonistic here or sharing negative aspects of what he thinks in these ways, but he's being positive towards me and we're having a fun time, does that build more trust because he's being more transparent? Whereas some people are going to be nice to everybody's face and not, then it's like, are they really telling the truth if they're good with everybody? You know what I mean? So I feel like in some ways that is non-intuitively reinforcing to his allies if he is open about certain things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it creates this like us v them mentality, which is very good for your group and very also creates enemies, right? Like
Right.
it is Russell like, and we certainly compared the Liz, Shawnee, George to Russell, Parvati, Danielle
Yes.
trios at the
Yes.
time, and it was like you were either with me or against me. Like that is kind of the vibe. But Russell's not having as much fun with it. I mean, like Russell's being
No.
more kind of negative.
Yeah.
I think than George is being like, George in his group is having fun, and his allies,
Right.
I think, are enjoying it until he votes them out.
Yes,
But
or
yeah, and
doesn't
I think
listen to them either. We saw a little bit of that dynamic come out when, the girls wanted to keep
which we
Flick
can talk
and
about.
he
Yeah.
did not want to keep Flick.
Well, we can talk about that. We can get into the swap here. I do think as well, he is like a loyal ally.
Yeah.
Most
Most of the time.
He voted out Shawnee. Fair. Okay, that doesn't look good, and it's unfortunate Shawnee's the one on the try. But like he votes out Kara at 4, and that is unfortunate. But he didn't want to do it, Like he couldn't get to. He's like, if the two of us, me and you and Flick, are in the final 3 challenge, like Flick's won the entire game. So
Right.
there was I don't know if that makes Kara feel better, but there was like method to the betrayal, and then even like Haley starts scheming against him in Heroes v Villains, and he votes her out. Otherwise, he's like, passing along secrets to her in challenges about where idols are. I think like he tries to really take care of his friends. And to be fair, his friends have won both of the seasons he's played with them. So it's not a terrible spot to be. Like that final 3 of Matt, Jerry, and Liz, like, thank you, George, of those really key allies of his. Yeah, so I mean, to go through the swap where you're talking about some of that social stuff. Well, actually, sorry, we can't talk about the swap. We haven't even talked about episode 7. We should talk about the episode 7. The crowning move that the New York Times said was one of the best episodes of TV of the year, despite the fact that it doesn't air in America.
Right.
For anyone who doesn't know George, they would have heard about the tribal council. Maybe they even watched this one episode, which I know a lot of people did. Basically, it was a 7-person tribal council. Yeah, Shawnee, Liz, George, Stevie, Fraser, Geordie, Simon.
Yeah.
Simon's the target. Simon wins immunity.
Yeah.
Simon also had an idol. So were they going to split on Simon?
No, I think they were straight up blindsiding him because he was voting for, like, he had no idea it was coming. And because Geordie is the one that sold out Simon.
Right.
And I think
he didn't have an idol. He thought he had an idol. That's
sorry,
yes.
Story. Yes. Yeah. So they were blindsiding him and he didn't know it was coming. And I can't remember who he was probably voting for George or Stevie. Probably he was
no, he was aligned with Stevie. So what? So Simon, they did like a surprise tribal council challenge.
Yeah.
And Simon won.
Yeah.
And then it became what to do now. And George wanted Fraser out for a lot of different reasons. Something George hates and people he doesn't want to work with are people he deems as bad television. That's the thing that George really hates. And he did not like Fraser for that reason. He felt like Fraser was like an immovable piece on the board. George will invest in pieces he thinks are of value to him. And he will like go out of his way to cut people he thinks are not of value to him. Right. That's like another us v them social thing that he does. And what it was that Simon was aligned with Stevie and Simon was now immune. And so he played his idol on himself. So it was like the votes, I hope I'm not butchering this, but like the votes for George were going to be negated. It's like if Stevie's going to go home, he put it to Simon. He was like waving the idol around his head and stuff. That was a whole different thing. But he put it to Simon, like, are you going to play your idol on Stevie? And the idea was one of two things were going to happen. He was either going to play his idol on Stevie and play the idol. The idol's gone. He's a straight shot next time. Or he's going to save Stevie. I'm sorry, and that's if he saves Stevie. Or he's going to let Stevie go and he's going to like lose this piece on the board as well. But like secret third thing, it was actually like a magic trick, like a sleight of hand, where Stevie was never being voted for and the Spice Girls votes were coming over the top. And actually what was happening in this 3-2-2 was they were going to vote out Fraser. So either Simon's idol would be gone or he would show his hand to not save Stevie, but Stevie would stay. And not just that Simon would lose Stevie out of the game, Stevie would stay in the game and be picked up by George and be an incredibly loyal ally to George, which George had read the kind of person Stevie is. Stevie was incredibly thankful. And Stevie had to be sacrificed shortly, which we'll talk about. But it was about picking up this piece on the board, humiliating Simon to a degree, right?
Yeah.
So that was all or having Simon play the idol. And then Fraser goes anyway. It was a sleight of hand.
Yeah. It was really like it was an interesting thing because he really had like, he knew what the script was, but it was a lot of smoke and mirrors to like get the outcome that he wanted, and really using people's relationships and motivations as tools to get what he wanted at the end of the day. And it's interesting because that I understood exactly what he was doing, because it was like when I played, that is how I was viewing things in terms of like, how do you get Lydia gone randomly when all your alliance members are on the chopping block? It's just that the way that I went about it was much more congenial. Under the congenial is what I would say, like chaotic neutral, maybe chaotic good. He's like chaotic evil. Like he will, use the Simon, tell us 3 winners from the US Survivor because you're such a fan, like he really will use these antagonistic qualities but also in the same breath be using things about motivations, people's positions socially in the game with each other and within the larger group, and information on idols and advantages to fabricate a scenario that will work out well for him. And that is that. I mean, it was electric television, and it worked out. Was there any downside to what he did? I feel like Jordy and Shawnee and Liz kind of got close after that, but I don't think they were voting him out necessarily. But he did lose Jordy in that process.
Well, yeah, I think that was the thing. Is like he humiliated Jordy. Jordy had come to him and he really cut that bond. But again, like he didn't really want to work with Jordy. But that's the thing that again George will do. George was like, screw Jordy, who had come to him in like good faith and told him all the stuff about Simon. He outed all of that to Simon at that tribal council and used all of that to gain what he thought was a better investment into Stevie and better capital in Stevie. So yeah, I mean, other people would say that the downside is like, don't in the first couple of weeks of a very long game, like don't burn bridges completely. But that's not George's game. George is happy to burn bridges so that he can get materials to build new, better bridges in his mind. And for George's game, there is no downside because that's the way he wants to play. Other people would not do that. But I do think one of the most satisfying moments in watching a Survivor ever for me is like watching that tribal council. It's like a 45-minute tribal council. And I was very much in that binary that he put Simon in. Like either Stevie will go or Stevie will be saved and Simon will use his idol. And it was like right at the end that I was like, oh, he voted for Fraser. Like they're coming. And like that like moment, it was like the twist at the end of a movie. It was brilliant.
Yes, it was like a Saw movie. But I feel like I knew that was coming when he went to Liz and Shawnee and said, "Our 3 votes control things," because it's like, why 3 votes? Like you either have more than that because you're going to these other people. Like you either have Stevie or Simon or whomever, or you don't. Like the 3 thing that was really got me. It's like, okay, I see what he's trying to do here. But the thing is, everybody else wouldn't know that because he only said that to Shawnee and Liz. So that's the kind of brilliance of it, is there was no way for everybody to know what he was doing in that moment. And Simon failed the test. And it was, especially what was so funny is that it wasn't even an idol. So
it was all done for Simon's idol. It wasn't an idol. No one Simon thought was an idol. They all thought was an idol. The crazy thing about it is it's such a confounding experience. Like you're kind of in Simon's shoes. Like you have that little bit more that the whispers. But
Yeah.
I felt like Simon, like I'm very much like he's giving
Yeah.
you a scenario and this like dilemma, but
But
it's like a fake dilemma. And it's like,
yeah.
at what point do you ever realize that? Like I think as viewers, you go on that journey where you're like, when do you work that out? Like at what point are you putting the pieces together? It's like a slow moving mystery coming together. It was actually really beautiful. Wonderful episode of television that we've now spoiled for people who never saw it. You should honestly go watch it. Go watch episode 7 of Heroes v Villains, because the New York Times said it was one of the best episodes of TV that year.
But I think the reason that this is so successful in general for him is that yes, at some point George locks in with a group and he kind of like eliminates and creates an us versus them mentality and eliminates all of those people, usually towards the end of the game, because then it's like, if we let any heroes get to the end, they're going to win. If we let any Brawn get to the end, they're going to win. So we have to stick together now. So it's a mutually beneficial thing to some extent. But prior to that end game, he is not letting the status quo stay the status quo for very long, because if he does while he's at the top, then eventually people are going to be like, you're running things, it's time to make the big move on you. But when he can like shake up the order a little bit and keep people on their toes and play that, as Christian said on David versus Goliath, the hyper frenetic game, he can keep up a little bit faster. People are a little bit less certain of their positions in the game and may try to rely on him a little bit more. And he's more needed in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, he keeps it super agile in Brains v Brawn, less so in Heroes versus Villains, because I think in Heroes versus Villains he just had so much control that he could play it more defensively. Like he could almost move in slow motion at that point. Like he was taking out threats as they arrived,
right?
And he was like reading things very well. Like he reads when like Simon's gonna flip on the Vigilantes, and he gives Simon the wrong name so that the heroes use 2 idols incorrectly on 3 possible targets, which was a crazy one.
But he does it a little, like it's peppered in there a little bit, like, you know, instead of going straight after Jordy and Simon, he's like, okay, Sarah can go now. Or he will, you know, flip from, you know, he's not getting rid of Matt now. He's going to keep Matt and get rid of Stevie, which we all were like, is that going to is Matt going to go right back to the other group? Like, and I guess they weren't, that was a situation where the tribe was at odds about what to do, but he quickly pivoted into something completely different that was beneficial to him. But then, yes, the us versus them on the heroes really was kind of a little bit of a steamroll, other than Shawnee and Simon right in there.
Well, he's able to, I think, see threats. Like he sees Shawnee as a threat, he takes her out before she can get him. He sees Haley as a threat, who's like leaking information to the other side. He takes her out. Like he sees Nina, and then eventually Simon as a threat. Like he's almost like playing that game like it is moving in slow motion for him through the merge. But let's talk about the swap, because to talk about the social game, so he and Shawnee have the "I don't think God loves Paige" moment at the swap, which is
so funny.
One of the best. As 2 animal lovers, I think we really enjoyed it.
Fuck Paige.
You said it. And they play the idol and they win the power there. And then it becomes this whole thing of like Shawnee wants to keep Flick, and he has played an entire game with Flick. He went to a final 3 with Flick, and he's like, Flick is not with us. And he's right. The annoying thing about it is he was, to be fair, completely right.
He was,
And I think that Shawnee and George came in from this like really fun, dominant pre-merge, and had very different ideas about how they wanted to kind of do the merge, and it probably spoke to the 2 different type of players they are. Like Shawnee wanted to kind of get in with the heroes and like have this more general game, and she probably saw people she could get along with on that side. George was like, I hate the heroes. We're going to have a group, like a really solid majority, and we're going to us v them. He doesn't want like a generalized game. He wants his 7 vigilantes to be laughing along at tribal council, talking in code, and taking out enemies that they are united against. And he was right. Actually, that was the way to go. And the heroes didn't have anything with Shawnee. Flick didn't. And that read was wrong. But he does, to be fair, get cornered into, but also he does try to compromise with Shawnee. I mean, Shawnee's like they're saying they'll use an idol on Flick. So he was cornered into it. But he sacrifices Stevie, which he worked damn hard to get. Stevie's a human being, who he worked too hard to get, very hard to get. He sacrifices Stevie and he invests in Jerry, who he's invested in Matt, a lot through this, and Matt. And that's what Jerry, like he asked Jerry, and Jerry chooses Matt. And that's going to be a final 3 that, like, you know, gets to 3 of the final 4.
Right.
And it was the right investment. But yeah, having to sacrifice Stevie sucked, but the right vote was Flick, but that he was, you know, that was out of his hands.
Right. And also, I thought that was a great pivot for him in terms of compromise. Like at the time, we don't know all the details about how Matt is really flipping. Because I remember at the time being like, is Matt real? Is he like, I saw him kind of like flick. I thought he was just going to go right back to the Meat Tray Alliance or whatever. But but George had the right read on the situation. And the thing is, I think Shawnee also didn't really want George in the end game. Like, to me, I always got the vibe that she was using him for a while. And so her setting up this new kind of group with Flick was probably her way out of that. So when he and her are trying to like, what's the best thing for our alliance, you know, she's probably thinking, well, this is better for me. And he's like, this is better for us / me. So, I mean, yes, it was completely the wrong read on their part. And he was doing the right thing, but also, you know, it was getting to the point where I was worried he was going to push them too far. Because at the end of the day, if your alliance members don't want to do what you want to do, you've got to find a way to do it without bulldozing and making them feel like they're.
But he doesn't. Like, if anything, they were bulldozing.
Yes, like I thought he was getting to that point watching it, but then he course corrected in a very ingenious manner. And so I think he does see the value in making his alliances feel seen and heard. And that was more just like a very difficult situation where he can be like, I told you so. But he recovered well from that. And I didn't get the Stevie thing in the moment, but like in hindsight, it was brilliant.
Yeah, I think that what you're saying is correct. Like, he and Shawnee are going to this merge wanting to win together, but like their individual eventual needs will diverge. So they're looking at it slightly differently. There are also people who play very differently. There are also people who can connect with different people. So even though Shawnee's read on Flick was incorrect, Shawnee generally thinking maybe I could have something as a kind of pathway to the heroes is more of an option to her than it will ever be to George. The heroes do not like George, you know? And like George wants to play as us v them, and George needs to play as us v them against the Shawns and the Sams of the world, who are never, ever going to entertain something with George. So it was 100% right for him to take out Flick. And it was, to be fair, generally right for all of them because Flick was not with them. And they come to a compromise by sacrificing Stevie. But I think it does show that he does try to work more collaboratively than we have probably given him credit for in this podcast. So they're like, you know, oh, well, like he's going to want all the control and stuff. Like, he works very collaboratively, what a hard word, with Haley through Brains v Brawn. You know, and with Shawnee through these parts as well. So I think he can and thrives on finding a partner that he sees as something of an equal and respects in a different demographic. And that's like his go-to. I just, like, that could be like a Sarah here or something like that. Not that Sarah's like at that level now, but like maybe she could rise to that level. But yeah, I just don't know where that person. I think it could be Sari. Like, I think that person would be Sari if it would, but not in this group.
In
but
this
like,
world,
I think it, you know, in a way.
In this AU versus world. But I don't know. I don't think that he's too bullheaded in terms of his overall gameplay. So if we came across that way, I don't think that we meant that. But his, like, I think he does. And it's kind of funny because the show portrayed him appeasing or asking for Jerry's opinion as like, kind of like not real, like it was just like for show, but I think he actually did value Jerry's opinion
he
to
loves
some extent.
Jerry.
And he did listen to him at certain points and allowed him to make decisions, but also I think he still had the knowledge that him allowing Jerry to make decisions was going to advance his own game as well. Like, it's watering the plant that you're investing in. Like, so I don't think he's like Russell, who can only lead from a controlling standpoint, or even a legend of the game, Boston Rob. Boston Rob has to have control and has to be making the decision at every single try. Like, it's very rare he yields to anybody else. We saw that on the traders as well. Like, every round or every turret meetup, if they didn't want to do what he like, ultimately he got his way, and that was stifling to Danielle and Carolyn. So George isn't really like that, which is he still wants control, but he isn't controlling, is what I would say.
Yeah, I think that George has respect and love for many of his allies in a way that I think is more than like a Russell.
Then Russell,
certainly where Russell got to with like a Parvati was not respectful. I mean, I know that George was Shawnee out of the game, and I don't think that relationship comes into the season in a great place, but I think he was, you know, if you ask George about Haley or Liz or Jerry or Kara, I mean, I think a lot of it is self-serving, but he has like big respect for them as players, some of them more than they probably deserve. And I think that he does come to them on that level more than you think from the archetype, where he
Right.
he comes like what Jerry says about Matt or CB matters because he
Yeah.
wants to invest in Jerry that much, and it actually
Yeah.
is incredibly important. So yeah, getting through as the vigilantes kind of went out here, he controls that whole post merge, and it kind of becomes a question of choosing Matt and Jerry or kind of Liz and Nina. And as you spoke about before, in kind of what might have been the mistakes there, yeah, I think that he thought he was going to. They all thought it was a final 2. The final 3 was a surprise with the juror removal. So he chose kind of Matt and Jerry. I think what he thought was his best physical pathway with Matt and Jerry, and not like Nina and Liz, who would be really good at endurance, and that always becomes the question. So I think it was on that, and then Liz wins because it is a surprise, like final 3, and they take out George there at final 4, when Liz would have been out 4th.
I feel like that is so. When Nina went out, she voted for Matt, right? And so did Liz.
That was the decision to choose which pair, and he chose Matt and Jerry.
And
for the final 2 he thought it was.
Right. And if it is a final 2, the thing is in the situation with Matt and Jerry, and at the final 3, like Matt is going to be the odds-on favorite to win that. And then
George thinks he's got a shot against Matt. George to this day says Matt moved his foot.
Okay. But like, I think that is not the bet that I would take. Like, I think that, especially if there's a final 2, in my opinion, keeping Nina around becomes even more important, because then it's like all the villain eyes are going to be on her to get out. The only downside to doing that is burning Jerry. But I think that Jerry is going to come back,
I remember this being incredibly complicated in ways that I can't kind of like replicate now in my analysis. I remember feeling like I was in his position in like a maze of dead ends, and everywhere I tried to go, I couldn't see how he gets to the end. I thought he would be taken out above Nina. I thought he could be turned on by Jerry. I think if he betrays Jerry, who did not like being betrayed, as we saw from the heroes from the beginning, I thought like his bet was on beating Matt in a final challenge over being seen as a lesser threat than Nina, which I think is also a possible toss-up, and also losing relationships that matches come for him when Nina's always targeting him.
Yeah.
So,
or is it? I still think he should keep Nina, but then maybe if Jerry's such an issue, then vote out Jerry at 5, and then Matt's still gonna probably take you over Liz, over
not
Nina.
over Liz. No, definitely not. I mean, he doesn't take him over Liz.
Oh,
right?
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. But yeah, that's true.
I think that I remember feeling like it was an impossible situation without the chance of winning a challenge. So if he's betting physically, then that's the bet. I would need to go back. I remember the podcast, I think it was with Evie and Rob, and I remember just being like dead end socially in terms of threat. I think it's a very, very tough path if you can't, if you're going to be a big threat who can't, which he was in Heroes versus Villains, who can't win that final challenge. And then it becomes like, I mean, like, is Nina a bigger jury threat? Like, does George get to the end and win in Heroes Villains? I think so. I always thought so.
I don't think against Nina, though.
Not against Nina, but like that would never happen. Like if that's the choice where he gets there with like Jerry or Matt or Liz, like I've always thought he would win, but those heroes really did not like him.
No.
He pissed people off. He did. Sean Hampson wasn't into it, like
Yeah.
Is Simon voting for George? Like this is what it comes back to burning
George
bridges. And then
Simon was gonna vote for him, but
maybe
I thought on your podcast he said he wasn't going to. So it's
this is the issue with burning bridges and then getting to face a possible jury of those bridges who are burnt and are just sitting there on fire. Like maybe I don't vote for you. So that's the tricky thing. But then it obviously seems like he's such a threat that obviously he'll be voted out. So I don't know. I felt like,
according to you, he's not even gonna have to worry about that this time. Like who to take?
Again, if that's the conundrum, we're in a great space. But I remember just thinking that Endgame was so hard.
Should we also predict who, like, what place he's gonna get, like, as a bet?
God. I don't feel good about George's
1 to 14. Okay, I have my number.
If George makes it past the first boot, I'm proud of him.
Okay,
no, then that's number. Nothing on George. Like that's the situation.
we know that, but we saw Suri go out early on Heroes versus Villains, so it's not about skill. But I have my number locked in. I want you to lock in your prediction.
14.
I'm 8.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's
Thank you,
really
as
good.
George expert, for bringing some optimism into
Yeah.
the situation.
I think it'll be 8. I don't think he'll get far into a merge situation, but I think he will probably get there through challenge wins on the AU part and hustle to get advantages. And maybe he'll find a crack with Sarah, with Shawnee, maybe with Kirby even.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so unfortunate to come in as a friend of George and to be so worried and low on his chances. Like, I think I said this at the end of Heroes Villains. Like, George hasn't been surprised by a vote I said, since Kara accidentally voted out Danny. Since like how bad, like I've always really disagreed with how the brains thing panned out. I'm not saying I agree with every social decision, but since like that swap with the Brawn and through the merge of Brains v Brawn, and then through everything he did on Heroes Villains, through the Shawnee blindside, I still repped it. I backed it the whole time.
You did, I remember.
And the end game as well, kind of like AJ last season. I'm like, sometimes you're such a big threat. It's like you got to win the challenge, and if not, it's just done. And it's nothing that you could do. It's like the way you play the game. And I just found like dead ends, which people have said maybe that's your fault, for having dead ends. But I just think if you're going to play that big a game and not be able to win a challenge, and also George can't play a smaller game, especially on his second season. Like, he's coming in as George. You have to lean into it 1000%. And George as well will prioritize the TV aspect, I think, as well. But George can't play small. So someone who has to be who they are, who has to play big on a second season, especially, he's going to struggle with the final challenge. I think it went about as well as he could. Like, he was deciding who wins the game. It was just very tough for it to be him.
Right.
And I still back those decisions in a difficult situation of possibly losing allies, Shields being, questionable at best with how big a threat he was, and then like trying to win a final challenge. I just think the way that George plays at that point, it was just going to be very, very hard to get through that, and I don't put as much blame on him. Yeah. So I'm very high on George as a player. I think this podcast has made it clear. Like, I think that he sees the game in ways few other people, if anyone on this planet, do. I don't know that many other people in the world, not just AUV world, the world, can do what happened in episode 7, can see the game on the fly. Like, Simon wins that challenge in the moment. Like, he's coming up with that live, not with time. It's crazy. Like, I so back the way George plays the game, or the way especially he sees himself and the very particular player that he is playing the game. We definitely high-key disagree in the analysis of other players. Yeah. But I think George has a special quality for himself, and I don't disagree with anything George does for himself. I disagree with him every day when we analyze the game together. But I just don't see the pathway here. But maybe it's just Idols and Shawnee coming back, and that'll be sweet. That'll be nice. That'll be great to see.
It's just such a small number that I think he can work something. I just don't think it'll be sustainable long term. I think it'll be fast and bright, but it'll be very bright.
Yeah. Well, it might be one great episode.
How do you think that AU is going to lose the challenge to this ragtag group of world?
Is true. Cass is good. Rob is great.
Yeah, but that's it. Parvati
is good.
But Parvati's still small. Like, some of these challenges are such brute strength. But he's one person. Tony is not a very large man. And
Tony won a bunch of challenges.
Yeah, but they were like individual challenges that were not like AU style. And he wasn't that good in the team challenges. And I don't know about this Finland man, but
I'm 3 episodes into Finland.
Right.
It's not enough to be able to think about how Tommy will contribute. Cass is great. Cass is from an endurance standpoint, physically, generally, Cass is very good. Rob is amazing. Yeah, those two are really, really getting it done, I think.
Yeah, but I think there is also something to be said about the challenges. Like, the AU people will be playing AU challenges. They're already kind of comfortable with the environment, with the team that is like filming. There is something to be said about comfort and being familiar with the type of thing that you're going to be doing. I don't see how they lose to this group, but we'll see.
Yeah. I also wanted to say, obviously, I'm surprised George hasn't been on more reality TV with this like reality TV career cast that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on The Amazing Race, which I watched.
I didn't watch. Oh, okay.
He made enemies there too.
On The Amazing Race?
He made so many enemies. My dad ran into Darren McMullen at paddle tennis, and he was like, "Oh, I'm here with Darren McMullen, who was on The Amazing Race with George." I'm like, "Don't mention George." He's like, "I already did." I'm like, "Don't do it." So yeah, I'm
That's
surprised
so funny.
is he the only person in this cast who's been on The Amazing Race?
He'll
Because that's the most shocking
probably
thing to
he'll
me.
probably be on Traders, I would imagine, at some point.
Well, oh, do you mean
Oh
like US
wait.
Raiders? Because we don't have.
Yeah, yeah, but they'll probably bring him onto US Traders, right?
That would be
No, do
awesome.
they only do US people?
No, they don't.
Really?
They've had like UK people and they've had like
On the
random
US
people from.
version?
Yeah, they have like housewives from everywhere.
I feel like but Bravo is like a US franchise though.
Right. But then they had like the guy, the like that semi-royal guy,
Oh yeah, true. That's true.
Lord.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Purple Evar.
Did he win? Ivar?
Yeah.
I watched that
Survivor.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see George on more things. I'd love to see George on like a House of Villains. Yeah,
Oh
there's a
yeah,
lot of.
that's a very good
Then I'd watch
possibility
it.
as well. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll probably watch this next season because both Tyson and New York are on it.
Well, and who?
New York.
Who's that?
She's just a random lady who was on some love show, but you need to. I'm going to send you the clip of New York reading Omarosa her rights. It was very funny.
Omarosa's been. I've never said like I was talking about Omarosa recently. Said she, Omarosa played Big Brother with Luke. Do you remember
Wait,
that?
what? With Luke?
Yeah, yeah. Luke won Big Brother VIP, and the people who were in it were like Caitlyn Jenner, and Omarosa was like first boot, and it was
Oh, I didn't
COVID
know
time, so things were different. Like people just, everyone was a little crazy, and
Right.
and there was also Meghan Markle's brother. So
Crazy. What a world.
yeah, but
What a fever dream.
it was. I've completely forgot about it. I was in like a pretty hard lockdown at that time. I do think that that time of my life is not fully in my
Right.
brain. This was really fun. I think
Yeah.
we captured George's game. If you didn't know who George was, definitely watch episode 7 of Heroes Villains. I hope you get a sense of him because he's a huge player in this franchise and I think globally. And if you do know George, hopefully you've thought more about his game and maybe you are more optimistic than I am. But it's hard to be less optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Set the bar low and exceed expectations. So if he does really well, you'll be happy. And if he doesn't, he'll be right.
Yes, exactly. That's true. Oma, thank you so much. Tell the people where they can find you.
Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Chat BCC, Cameo. If you request a cameo and you want to know what either animal or survivor player you are based on information, I'll tell you. And I'm going to be honest. Like, if you're a slug, I'm going to say it. You can't be offended.
Pay for the opportunity for Oma to call you a slug, maybe. a worthy capital investment in themes.
The world wouldn't run without being a slug. So if you don't appreciate your place in the world food map, that's not my problem.
In the ecosystem of life.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't care what you say, though. I am a cat. I'm clearly a cat.
No.
Yes. I'm a cat.
Well,
I sleep all day.
If cats were extinct, everybody would go on with their lives. But if
no, I wouldn't.
Honeybees were extinct, the whole world would collapse. And that's how we feel about you.
That's so sweet. But I would not go on if cats were extinct, then God forbid, there'd be no point in living.
For some, perhaps.
For me. Yes. Well, anyway, don't listen to him, Lizzie.
I love cats. But I think that they are not. They actually, unfortunately, ruin many ecosystems.
Yes. Well, my cats are indoor cats, so the ecosystem they ruin are their little toy tacos.
Cute.
Taken their little toy birdies. Only the toy birdies get drowned in their water bowls.
Keep your cats inside. They ruin New Zealand. And I'm sure Lisa Stanger knows all about that.
Keep your cats inside. They ruin New Zealand. And with that, we will finish the podcast. Thank you all. This series continues on. The season starts August 17th. Listen to all of the podcasts, WeKnowGlobalSurvivor.com and at Shannon Guss. What is happening, Omar? What are we doing right now?
My microphone that Rob Sesternino gave me has fallen apart. I'm just fixing it. Yeah.
Well, the podcast is over. Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to our team behind the scenes, and I will see you next time. Bye. Nope. Okay, bye.